On today's show, Mike Morris and the Spartan Games, Day 3. Welcome to the OCR Report podcast, brought to you by the OCRReport.com. We are the only podcast to focus exclusively on the elite sport of obstacle course racing, from Spartan to Tough Mudder to the OCR World Championships, and wherever the elites are racing, we are there. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the OCR Report. Welcome back to the OCR Report podcast. Thank you for listening. You're listening to the only podcast that talks about obstacle course racing. That's not true. Today on our show, Mike Morris. We were talking day 3 of the Spartan Games. If you haven't seen the show yet, this is where I talk about spoilers. Spoiler. That is our new spoiler alert warning. Spoiler. Okay, here's the story behind that. I wanted a spoiler alert sound effect for the show, but I could not find one on YouTube. So I had to make my own. Spoiler. Look, I didn't say it was a good story. You can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow the show on social media by searching for the OCR Report. And you can text me at 619-485-2726. 619-485-2726. That's probably the best way. That definitely is the best way to get in touch with me. I am on social media about once every never, and email. Man, it gets so crowded up, right? Love your emails. Love to read your emails. But if I miss it somehow, shoot me a text. 619-485-2726. And if you want more OCR content, go to the OCRreport.com. Check out our other podcasts. Obstacle Running Adventures, OCR Talk, OCR Coven, Overcome and Run. Very proud of our other shows. Let's talk some news. We're going to talk tons of Spartan Games in 1 minute, I promise. But first, Battle Frog.
Gotta live it.
Garfield Griffith released a statement saying he would not be a part of Battle Frog going forward. We talked about that with Garfield on the podcast a few weeks ago. Actually, we talked to him on World Stubbs podcast, one of our other shows on the OCR Report. Garfield Griffith is a longtime, well-respected member of the OCR community. He had taken the position of Chief Operating Officer with Battle Frog. He is not going to be working with them in 2020. They have officially parted ways. Battle Frog hiring Garfield was seen as a genius move for Battle Frog. He had the experience and the contacts and the knowledge to make the relaunch of Battle Frog a success. So it's surprising and disappointing to learn about this. A couple questions. This raises a couple questions, I should say. Will Battle Frog 2021 still happen? They just lost one of their biggest assets to make those races happen. Can they put on a legitimate race experience without Garfield, or without someone like Garfield with his level of experience at the helm? Will the races still happen? Another question. Where does Garfield end up? Pre-Battle Frog 2021, Garfield was with Spartan. They parted on good terms for Garfield to go work with Battle Frog. I imagine Garfield will land on his feet with Spartan in some capacity next year. Last question. Does Battle Frog having a hard time relaunching reflect on the state of OCR as a whole leading into this post-COVID time? That's the kind of question we can speculate on right now, but we will only be able to answer it looking backward, like in a year from now. My thoughts on it, any problems that Battle Frog has, and I'm not ready to bury them yet, but any problems Battle Frog has are Battle Frog's, not OCR's. Spartan race, OCR is fine. will be fine. OCR will be fine. Spartan Race will be back next year. Tough Mudder will be back next year. Savage Race will be back next year. Bone Frog. Remember Bone Frog? Bone Frog already has 10 events scheduled for next year. Even Conquer the Gauntlet will be back next year, although they will be smaller than before. Here is my prediction. Bookmark this, save it, and remind me about it a year from now. OCR will come back from COVID so strong in 2021 that 2022 will look like 2012. 2012 had races every weekend, random mom and pops holding races. Not next year, not 2021. 2022, all races will be back super strong in 2022. Those 5K bubble races will come back. Those after dark, like rave party 5K races, the ones with the spray powder colors. Remember those? 2022 will be a huge year for the running / OCR / live events industry. I talked briefly with Battlefrog post Garfield. They say things are moving forward as planned in 2021. We're going to talk with them soon, probably in January after the holidays, to get a full update from them. Obviously, they're hitting some speed bumps. We wish them the best, and we want them to be successful. If there was an announcement later today, guess who's coming back? It's Superhero Scramble. No one would care. No one would be excited about that. We know you missed us. It's Gladiator Rock and Run. Remember us? It's Alpha Warrior. The only race that might get a little love if they came back is Warrior Dash. They were a lot of people's first OCR race, so there is some affection there. The reaction to Battlefrog coming back is unlike anything else in OCR. People are genuinely excited and happy for it, and it's literally the only race, maybe Warrior Dash also. If 2021 plays out like I just talked about, and 2022 comes back, don't be surprised if Warrior Dash 2.0 shows up sometime. Remember where you heard that first. It's here. You heard it here first. Spartan Games, Day 3. I firmly believe each episode of this show has gotten better and better. This was the longest episode so far and the most enjoyable for me. I think part of it is that we have moved past the Hunter Aaron Newell drama and we're back to focusing on the competition, which is why I started watching in the first place. I'm not tuning in to see Real Housewives of Bucket Throw Anta. Day 3 of the Spartan Games included 2 events, Spartan Wrestling and the Trail Ultra. What was your favorite part of episode 3? Was it the wrestling? I have had more than one Tough Mudder lady reach out to me about the wrestling. Ladies like the wrestling. Ladies, why do you like the Spartan Wrestling so much? I don't know. Let's talk results for day 3. We'll do the top 3 in each event. Men's wrestling in first place, Hunter McIntyre with 25 points. Second, Kurt Maggitt, 18 points. And third, Max Finnell with 15. Women's wrestling in first place, Faith Cook with 25 points. Second place, Emma Chapman with 18 points. And in third, Christy O'Connell with 15 points. The Trail Ultra, 6-hour race on a 5-mile loop course. Top 3 women in first, Lindsay Webster with 25 points and 30 miles in 5:33. In second, Lauren Weeks with 18 points, 30 miles in 5 hours and 41 minutes. And in third, Rhea Coble, 15 points, 30 miles in 5:53. Your men's results, Spartan Trail Ultra in first place, Ryan Atkins with 25 points, 35 miles in 5:20. In second, Josiah Middaugh with 18 points, 35 miles, 5:52. And in third, Aaron Newell, 15 points, 30 miles in 5:07. So where does that leave us points-wise going into the final day of these Spartan Games? Who is best positioned to win going into the last day? Here are your top men right now. First place, Hunter McIntyre with 105. Second place, Ryan Atkins with 103. They have a 2-point difference. One of them is going to win the Spartan Games, and the other one will probably finish second place. There's a group of guys fighting for third place. Right now, in third is Josiah Middaugh with 80. In fourth is Ryan Kent with 74. And in fifth is Herman Demick with 72. So one of those three guys are best positioned for third place on the podium. For the women, your top women right now. In first place, Lindsay Webster, 104. In second place, Corinna Coffin with 94. In third, Lauren Weeks with 87. Lindsay has a 10-point lead on Corinna and a 17-point lead on Lauren. I think it's going to be tough for Corinna or Lauren to catch Lindsay. It's going to be tough, but not impossible. Lindsay's won several events, but she's also placed low at several events. Corinna and Lauren have won 0 events, but they place high every single time. It will be fun to watch both sides, men and women, going into day 4. There's a lot to unpack about day 3 of the games. We're going to do some of it with Mike Morris here in a minute. We talk with Mike each week after the new episode of Spartan Games airs. Mike is the vice president of production for Spartan and the event director for the Spartan Games. You see him each episode briefing the athletes and giving them direction. Very happy to have Mike back on the show this week. We're also going to talk with our OCR Report team about episode 3. That will air shortly. Be sure you are subscribed to the podcast and to text alerts so you don't miss the new episode. To subscribe to text alerts to get the new episodes early before anyone else does, text the word early to 619-485-2726. That will allow you to join our text group for early access to episodes, sneak peeks of next guests, and the opportunity to ask questions of our guests. Text early to 619-485-2726. Let's read some iTunes reviews.
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars. 5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
Our first review comes from my mom. My mom texted me and said, "Good podcast with Caitlin." Thanks, Mom. If you'd like to be a part of the show like my mom, you can leave a review also. Open the Purple Podcast app, go to search for the OCR Report, click our logo, and then scroll down to click Write a Review, and I will read it on a future episode. You can also text it to me at 619-485-2726. It's time to talk with Mike Morris. Quick sidebar. If you have questions for Mike, text them to me, 619-485-2726. We weren't able to get to listener questions this week, but we will get them all in next week. Text your questions to me, 619-485-2726. It's time to talk Spartan Games Day 3 with Mike Morris. Let's go to the phones. Mike Morris is the vice president of production for Spartan and the event director of the Spartan Games. Mike joins us each week to talk about the new episode of Spartan Games and share his top-level insight into what we just watched. Mike, welcome back.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me. Top-level insight sounds very powerful and official.
That's where you are, man. You're up top.
Oh.
Hey, before we talk episode 3, I was looking at the viewer numbers on YouTube. As you and I are talking right now, episode 1 of the Spartan Games has 610,000 views. Episode 2 has almost 230,000. What is the feeling inside Spartan HQ on the viewer numbers?
There's a lot of nuance to that. Probably not we could spend hours talking about metrics, right? But generally speaking, we're very happy with overall with the games and the direction it's gone and its intention, which was to engage your audience, talk about something that has to do with sport in a time where there's not much going on with the pandemic, and hopefully bring and keep Spartan Race top of mind for people. And I think we did it with a pretty cool idea.
The reason I ask is people are looking forward to or hoping for a season 2 and start to throw out names of athletes they think would do well in this format. But that's probably a conversation for another day.
Yeah, no, I think there's we'd be silly not to think about a season 2. Whether it actually happens, there's a lot of decision making that has to go into investments like that. But it was great feedback coming out of this season. Or still getting it. So certainly top of mind.
Day 3 of the Spartan Games had 2 events, wrestling and the Trail Ultra. Let's talk about wrestling. Wrestling had 90-second long matches, first to 5 points, or whoever was leading when time expired in a double elimination tournament-style format. For the events so far in the Spartan Games, they've all at least been OCR adjacent. Wrestling seems more ancient Greece adjacent. What was the process of including wrestling in the Spartan Games?
Yeah, I mean, what most people don't know is Joe is big into wrestling himself, his family, and he does have wrestling camps up at the farm. Spartan has a combat, quote unquote, wrestling branch, if you will, that dabbles in the world, and is something we plan on getting more into. But I think as we are developing the concepts and building out, it was how do we pick something that is going to maybe shake things up a bit, right? And but still test people's physical limits and be a good test for the show.
We are 3 days in, 7 events into Spartan Games. Wrestling was the event that had some of the lady Tough Mudder fans I know reach out to me. They are big fans of the old Spartan wrestling. So say that again. You had some Tough Mudder fans reach out about this particular show, right? Yes, some of the lady Tough Mudders that may or may not be into Spartan events, but they like the wrestling. So
it's interesting. It's interesting that we definitely, obviously we bought Tough Mudder and had to have a great partnership with them now, and the team over there is amazing. But as we keep looking under the hood more, it's interesting to see like the 2 different customer segments and the overlap or lack thereof overlap. And it's interesting you say that some of the, a lot of Tough Mudder women, quote unquote women, quote unquote Tough Mudder women are reaching out to, that came out around quote unquote Tough Mudder women are reaching out specifically about it. Maybe that's an indication of some alignment there in what people that do Tough Mudders, what they might be more interested in.
At the end of the episode, you mentioned how uncomfortable some of the athletes were with wrestling. Was it because it was a new discipline or concern for injury? Maybe a combination of that?
Yeah, and building on the whole premise of this entire event, which is getting high-level athletes out of their comfort zone and testing them and seeing how they'll perform. This is, I guess, another reason why we thought of this is like I don't think anyone really would expect Spartan wrestling. But yeah, everyone. I was nervous, and it's new. It's obviously you're touching your competitor, so there's an extra level of concern there about injury and then pointing fingers. But we had an awesome coach and official there, Andy Horvat, who's was on the U.S. Olympic team. He's coached the U.S. team. He's coached the 2 teams in Europe, or I think it was as well. So like he knows what he's doing. He does this all the time. And the specific rules and the format we picked, he's done so many, like thousands of times with kids, adults, right? And he knows that it's not designed to get out there and have tons of rules like traditional wrestling, right? Like you have to kind of know what's going on. If you don't wrestle, you're watching. You're like, how do they get a point? Like, how do they score this? This is just like if anything touches the ground beside your feet, it's a point. And so, and he was there to officiate it and keep it under control. And I think there's just a level of respect too among the competitors. People knew, they're out there for blood in a sense in terms of to get points, but no one was there to hurt each other. Everyone was still cordial, real professional about it.
My 2 favorite things about the Spartan Games so far: 1, when an athlete is completely out of their comfort zone and how they respond to that, and 2, when an athlete is 100% in their comfort zone and how they respond to that. Kurt Magid and Hunter McIntyre were in their wheelhouse with wrestling.
Yeah. Yes. It's so funny because Hunter wrestled growing up. I don't know if Kurt did, but clearly Kurt's a beast and he was playing in the NFL. But I think wrestling in any sort of hand-to-hand combat sport is very much a technique, can be very much technique driven. So I think Hunter Hunter clearly made up for what might have been, that pure raw size and strength. He made up for with technique. Did a great job, clearly. But yeah, it was, on your point, that was just the common theme has been, and we saw it evolve and just like I said, and you saw it in the run too with Kellum, taking these high level athletes, taking them out of their comfort zone, what happens, and watching them perform in these different situations, whether they're just like polar streams of someone that's way out of their element versus someone who's really in their element, seeing that amazing performance, both from the person that's in their element, like they kill it, Ryan Atkins and Josiah battling out on the mountain bike, to someone who's never been on a mountain bike before and still getting through it. You're just like, wow, that's both performances are impressive. And to me, the test of an athlete, more of as an athlete, not necessarily fitness, right, is how do you adapt to new challenges that are both physically and mentally demanding. Everyone knows. That's when I was thinking, this was my ride yesterday. Everyone had that friend growing up that you'd go, like, you'd practice a sport. I don't know. You get a pool table and you practice for like a week, 3 weeks. You practice for a long time, and then your friend who's never played before comes over and he beats you. You're like, what? Like, how did you? They're just good. They're just athletic, right? They good hand-eye coordination, good body awareness. They're strong. They're fast, right? And so people like that tend to adapt better, and with good attitude as well, adapt better to those new challenges. Yeah,
you go bowling at a birthday party, and this kid rolls almost a 300 game. You're like, you've never bowled before in your life. What's going on?
You're bowled before? No, never have. You're like, I hate you. And yeah, Kellum, you saw in the film, so she came down and clearly was not happy with the situation, right? This was supposed to be her thing, the run. And she's a world-class road runner, and she does trail racing. We're not known for the cleanest trails, if you will. It was, and out of all, like, this was nowhere near like a Killington, right? Or a bushwhack up the side of some of the ski mountains. This is traversing single track. They rode a lot of it the day before up the mountain, which you could run. There's a short hike in the beginning that was short. We instead of doing this thing, the switchbacks that the bike had, they did go up a steep walk in the beginning, but after that, there's some runnable sections. But yeah, there was a bushwhack down for a good portion of the run, and it didn't suit well to the people that aren't used to bushwhacking.
We are so used to seeing Ryan Atkins dominate whatever he touches that when we see a reminder that he's human, it's kind of unnerving. Tell me about Ryan Atkins wrestling.
I think generally speaking, I was really surprised by how almost all the athletes perform wrestling, right? A couple that jumped out. Max did extremely well in the wrestling, better than I thought he was going to do. So he was up on my list of like, didn't expect that, right? Ryan was up there. Again, same thing. Josiah Middaugh, for me, got the Scrappy Award. Like, he really blew me away. Like, tall, lanky guy came in, was like just like really getting after it. Ryan had a tough draw. He came in and the two he drew, his first two, I forget the order, right? But he had two tough draws, which clearly put him in a worse situation. That was just literally luck of the draw. Luck of the placement, I should say, because we did the rankings based on placement going into the day. So he ended up with the draws he did, which I think did impact his standings. One could argue it impacted how he finished out because the people he did wrestle finished really high. So, but yeah, he went out there, everyone in there battling. And the grid award on the female side, what goes to Lindsay, actually, she totally surprised. She came out slinging. All the girls were, again, same thing, but the ones that surprised me the most, Lindsay and Josiah.
Wrestling, Kurt said something, putting your hands on another man. It can be emotionally intense. Were there any flare-ups that you had to work with? Anyone getting a little heated?
Not at all. It was super well controlled. I mean, Andy just killed it, the official. And if it wasn't for him, it'd be really tough. Like, none of us there. One of our staff guys actually was an MMA fighter and has trained people for a while, and he could have handled it. I'm pretty confident. But just having, the point there is having someone there that is like really confident in the rules and how to call it. There were a couple calls where I would have been like, I have no idea how to call that, right? But he's done this so many times. It was, there's some nuance to, like, if you both hit the ground at the same time, the person initiating the move got the benefit of it, right? And all these nuances around, like, if there's a tie, the win goes to the person who scored the point first. If you're just dancing around, like, he'll tell you you're not being aggressive. You get 30 seconds to make a move or you're done. So having someone in control really made the biggest world of difference there. And then there are a couple moments where some of the athletes disagree with the call, but there was about 0.5 seconds of discussion before they're back into the next fight.
Wrestling has a lot of technique and moves to learn. The move I was not expecting to see was the Dirty Dancing lift.
Yeah, that was Aaron and Grant. I think Aaron appreciated that his chances of winning were low and wanted to just have some fun with it. So it was good to see that side of Aaron come through on the show because it was fun. It was fun to see.
Right before the women's final, Emma Chapman took a finger to the eye, it looked like. Every match up till then, she was throwing people around pretty well. But in the final, she chose to yield and take a knee. Was that because of her eye?
The final against Faith, you mean?
Yeah.
Like the final, yeah. I didn't talk to her. My guess is it'd be fun to ask Emma this. I don't think it's because of the eye, no, because she had a couple battles. She had a couple rep matches since the eye scratch,
okay.
I'm pretty sure. So it wasn't because I think that was, if you were there, you saw how dominant Faith was. Like it wasn't, like Corinna did a great job against her. And I think Emma realized Emma had been going back because she was in the losers second, like the quote unquote losers bracket. So she'd been wrestling nonstop. And she's probably like, if I'm the athlete, I'm probably thinking I've got a 5-hour marathon I got to run. For me to stand even a close chance of beating Faith, I have to just lay it out there on the line. And is it worth me doing right now? Or do I just kneel, take the second place, save my energy for this epic run I've got coming up? So
there were some great matches. Chapman versus Coffin was good. Newell versus Stevens. Anything with Grant McCartney, Hunter, or Kurt Maggitt was good. The men's final looked great. What was the best match in person? The men's final was really good. That was super competitive. I remember Corinna and Emma, and they had to go twice, I'm pretty sure, because of the elimination bracket, the way it worked. And we were going so quick on site too, you kind of lost. It's easy to lose track of where you were, and all of a sudden we're like, "Wait a minute, they're going again." But they had some good battles. Watching, maybe it's because I gave him the Grit Award, Josiah. There was one he had, I forget who he was with, but he was like battling it out, and everyone had such great matches, and there's definitely this nervousness in the air for everyone, myself. The athletes, in the first thud of body on body hitting the ground was like everyone was like whoa, and it kind of was like an icebreaker. At the same time, it sent this electric energy through the air. It was like boom, it was like yeah, right. And I think it was who was it first? It was Nicole and someone else. I think it was the first match, and I think they showed it on the show. There was a good little hit there, or not hit, but just a good takedown, and then it just from there, it was just awesome. And most people didn't realize is that we woke up with frost on the ground, so the sand was frozen. It was cold, and the athletes were in between matches were complaining about how cold their feet were. So anyone who's put their foot in a bucket of ice knows how painful that is for the first 2 minutes until the nerves go numb. And so you're doing that. You got to get out, warm your feet up, clean them off, get back in. So people were really struggling with some of their feet as well. Hunter won wrestling for the men. Faith Cook wins for the women. Faith Cook may be the strongest woman I've ever seen.
Beast.
Looking back, what sticks out the most about the wrestling event? I
think from a show perspective, that might not be evident, is really how uncomfortable and to the point angry the athletes were they had to do wrestling going into it the night before. Just how not upset, but just outspoken a lot of them were, and but then seeing that everyone got through it and the kind of the tonality shift. And Lindsay said it on the show. She's like, it was super safe and well organized. So that's what sticks out the most. I think it's just a broad level. It's seeing all these athletes be super uncomfortable, get into it. They flip that switch. They get into game mode, which they're like, all right, this is happening. Let's just do this. And they get through it and realize how safe it was. And everyone being like, okay, this is on, this is going to work. And I think just a lot of this internally with the production team and the Spartan team and the athletes was about building trust too. And there was times we lost trust, and there was times we built trust. And I think this is one of those moments where we came out of that building a little more trust, kind of like call it our trust capital, right? We put some in the bank there on the trust side, because that was an area a lot of us were uncomfortable with. And so they're putting a lot of faith in us to make sure we design an event that was safe and good. And so, and kudos to Andy for really leading the way on that.
The second event of the day was the Trail Ultra, 6 hours on a 5-mile looped course. How happy were the ultra runners to have something finally in their specialty?
I think clearly they were happy to be running. Probably not clear going into that. That was day 3. People were smoked after anyone who's competing in endurance stuff. I mean, day 1, they do Spartan Cross, which is just an anaerobic effort for 40 minutes. Hands are probably smoke coming out of that. Legs maybe not too bad. Then they got all the strong competition in the swim, which is just the swim just fatigues you, and the strong stuff, you're going to be sore the next day if you're trying to lift those heavy rocks if you're an endurance person. Then day 2, you get the DECA, which is again anaerobic effort, but it's going to make you sore. It's like the first time you do plyos in a long time. You wake up sore the next day. And then they do a 6-hour mountain bike or 5-hour mountain bike. That's just so your legs are heavy now. Waking up in day 3, heavy and sore. Cycling makes your legs really heavy, and to have to go run a whole bunch the next day is hard. So I think everyone was pumped, but at the same time, you could see them kind of like, they're like trying to stretch it out, and warm it up, and get their game face on. And then that leads them into day 4, where you woke up, and what you'll see on day 4, it was like raining and cold, and they kick off with a vertical K, and it was. The vibe was definitely like, this is day 4. We're all tired. Everyone's kind of like, your kids are like tired trying to get ready for school, and they're just like lingering around. No one can find their jacket, and they're like still in the back, like, come on, we got to go. Bus is here. That was like every athlete for the 4th day. Half of them had their weight vest on. Can't find half of them. Someone's down below. Guys, we got to start this thing. Let's go.
Was the ultra course, the same as the mountain biking course?
It was a slight modification. So if you call it the mountain biking course on the ascent, the climb had a bunch of switchbacks. So most of it was rideable. This, we cut those primary switchbacks and did a straight uphill, and then connect. So like half the climb was cut off from the mountain bike with the straight uphill, and then it connected with the remaining single track that went to the top. From the top and the descent, the mountain bike went out for 4 miles more, 5 miles more on a long like gradual descent, and then cut back. So like went out really far and then came back. This just basically like shot straight down the mountain until you had some of those trails and then cut around.
Kellen Taylor, you mentioned her. She's a world-class marathon runner, arguably the best running resume of anyone in the Spartan Games. She led the race early, but was not a fan of the course. She stopped at the 4-hour mark, ended up finishing in 4th. Tell me about her race.
I mean, what you saw on TV is what we saw. I wasn't there to talk to her when she finished, so I don't know the motive, but she said something that's effective, like, is it even worth me continuing on? She makes a living on running, so clearly she's thinking about her career and where it matters and what's important. So I think it's the cost benefit analysis for her at that point.
Hunter seemed like he was doing math in his head the whole race. He had scenarios with his and Atkins finishes in his head for days. That you and I, but we know Hunter. That seemed surprising how thoughtful he was about the scoring.
Yeah, I don't know Hunter that well, but I've known him for a long time. I think people see this like side of him, which is the Macho Man Randy Savage side, which is clearly entertaining and fun. And he's a ball buster and gets under people's skin as part of his strategy, but he's he can be very cerebral sometimes, and the little I know him, there's just definitely a side of him that has, he's always thinking ahead, being strategic. Some of the stuff he does in his personal life, like you just look under the hood, you're like, all right, he's a thoughtful dude. So I'm not surprised. I wasn't surprised to see him. I guess my point is I wasn't surprised at all to know that he was thinking strategically. I think everything he does is there's a reason behind it. Even like what we get to see in the show is we didn't hear from him for like the 24 hours leading up to the event to get his result, the PCR results back from the COVID test. And we're like, Nate's like, I haven't heard back from Hunter, and like he just went dark. And we're like, to the point where we're like, why would he like? There's probably a reason he's doing it. He's probably messing with us, right? And it goes back to probably maybe the deck he's talking about with the villain thing. He's like, all right, I'm gonna play into this. Screw these guys, right? He had it. He had the results, and of course, it was like an hour before the show, we get the email. He was cleared hot, good to go, but he was, and so I don't think that was Hunter not checking his email or just being aloof. I think if I were to talk to him one-on-one, I'm sure he had a strategic reason as to why he was doing that. I think there's a reason for everything Hunter does. So I'm not surprised he's doing the math. Smart guy.
It was fun to see Lindsay and Nicole running together some. They're usually 1-2 for Spartan races. We haven't seen a lot of them together before this episode. Not really a question, just a comment. It was fun to see them again. There was one shot that came. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think Rhea, having all those girls back that we typically see on our podiums at the events, it was awesome getting them back. In the same area I'd run in. It was good. Yeah. It was good to see the familiar OCR faces because I knew them. You gravitate towards people you're comfortable with. And I feel like I have a good relationship with most of them. So it was just a personal pleasure as well to see those athletes there.
There was one shot that came and went and was never mentioned. Next to the course, there was a tree with a face. Not a tree that looks like it has a face. Do you know what I'm talking about? A tree with a face, like nightmare fuel. Do you know the story behind Face Tree?
Oh, there's at the bottom of Joe's stairs. I think there's a tree with a face.
Is that carved in there, or there's got to be a story behind that.
I think it's a totem, like a totem pole. I don't think it's a tree. I think it's a totem pole of some sort.
Okay. There was a lot of emotion this episode. Corinna crying, Ryan Kent, Herman Demick, Grant McCartney. What do you think it is about running long distances that breaks down those internal walls in athletes?
I don't think it's necessarily running. I think it's the culmination of 3 days of competing in an environment that you're not used to and being uncomfortable, and then doing on the third day doing something that's longer than typical, and like which includes a 6-hour marathon. So it could have been anything, but so now I wouldn't equate it to running. It just so happens that we had that run, and that was kind of probably what draws a lot of people's emotions out. I mean, and when you get into your head for that long, or you do like mentally and physically exhausting things for that long, emotion comes through in weird ways, and we see it all the time. I've dealt with it, and so I think you're seeing that. We're getting to the point where 3 days are catching up with people, and it's allowed, and they're probably going back to the trust thing. They're probably putting their guards down a little bit and allowing the emotion to creep in, and they feel like talking about it. They're willing to talk about it, even more importantly, which is really cool for the audience and for the viewer and for us that were there to see them come out and say these things. Before I forget, one thing you mentioned, Ryan Kent, one thing that you didn't see in the show is, and it might not be evident to the viewer, but there's what's really unique about that set time format when there's as many laps as you can, is there's a tremendous amount of, like, we call it upward pressure from people behind you if you're racing. Because if you're in front of someone, say I'm like you and I we're on our fourth lap. Say we're doing an hour lap and we just finished the fourth lap and there's an hour and 15 minutes left. You're sitting there going, do I go? Because I don't want to do another lap if I don't need to. I got another day tomorrow, but I'm behind you somewhere. And so there's a tremendous amount of stress. Like, oh gosh, what do I do? Do I go or do I wait? If I wait, then like I can't keep my lead. Then I'm racing him, but maybe he comes back and I convince him not to go. So you don't want to go and waste the lap. You don't need to if he's at half an hour behind, but he might be 3 minutes behind. And so we saw that in Iceland and Sweden, and this dynamic really evolves into something really, really cool on site. We saw it really went crazy in Sweden this past year. People crying, having to go out another lap. So we saw that a lot here. People were like, where's so-and-so? Can I go back out? So that wasn't necessarily clear. And so the viewers should know that's a really cool aspect of that format. Ryan Kent came in front of Hunter and was like, Hunter's coming, I'm out. And he runs out. And what we didn't know, so Hunter comes in, he goes, where's Ryan? You see him, he's like, where's Ryan? He's like, so-and-so. He's like, oh, I'm not going to keep chasing him. He's going to be doing that forever, la, la, la. What we didn't know is Kent, it was like an hour and a half left. Kent was doing like an hour, 15-minute lap. I'm making up times. He went up in the woods like 100 meters in the woods and hid for like a half an hour until he knew that there's no physical way they could finish another lap. And all of a sudden we see this guy walking out of the woods, and this Ryan Cameron, like, what are you doing? He's like, I was just hiding up there waiting for Hunter. He's like, and he knew that he was far enough in the woods where if he saw him coming, he would be able to take off the hill. It was amazing. It's great strategy. And because there's no separate finish line like we have in, say, Sweden, where you have to like declare your finish, he was able to just be like, yeah, the last lap was it. I'm done. And it was like, oh man, that was so cool. He was up there hiding in the woods.
Point wise, tell me if I'm wrong. Grant McCartney's fourth lap did not change anything. There was no race reason or event reason for him to squeeze in one more lap. And he knew that, but he chose to go out and do another 5 miles. The more I see it, I feel like Spartan needs to be in the Grant McCartney business. I've been nothing but impressed with Grant.
You know, coach my kids, coach people, and you tell there's 2 things you can control. Got to break it down, but I think this applies to the adults too. Attitude and effort, right? At this point, we don't care if you're that good. You show up, you got to have a great attitude, you got to try. That's what we want to see. And he's just one of those dudes. Like, his attitude's amazing, and he puts it all in. And he's like, he's the guy you want to coach. Like your entire, and there's a lot of people that are like that. But that attitude, and he, I actually ran. It's funny, I ran that last lap with him, majority of it, and he was just the one prior, like the leading into that. He was like, man, this is the last lap. I'm done. And we were talking even strategy, and like, do I go back out? And he's like, what do I do if the person in front of me is there? Because he was running slower laps. I'm like, what you need to do? And we were just talking through different stuff. Like, you fake him out and get him to go. And he had this whole plan going in the transition area, and he gets across and he's like, all right, I'm going back out. I'm like, wait a minute, we talked about this for like the last half. Like, he was like, this is what I'm going to do. And he came in, he's like, wait, I was like, but you're not doing what you said you're going to do. And so he's crossed the line, and he was like, I'm just going to do it because I can. And you're right. It's like the right thing to do. And he went out for that last lap, and it was, I think, like you said, I got to look at the points. I don't know if it really mattered, but I think it's an indication of he just is always trying his best. Great attitude.
For the men, Ryan Atkins finished in first, Josiah Middaugh in second, and Aaron Newell in third. For the women, Lindsay finished in first, Lauren Weeks in second, Rhea Coble in third. Rhea Coble has won multiple 24-hour OCR races. She finished second at Eco Challenge. Rhea Coble does 6 hours for fun before breakfast, right? She didn't get a lot of screen time, but I was happy to see Rhea on the podium for the women.
Yeah, and I was surprised she didn't do better than that. I think talking to her, I don't remember what she said. I think, Eco was obviously last year, and then there's Tahoe. I think she took the spring and the winter just to do what she loved and enjoy. I think she spent a lot of time like cycling, like you saw that in the results of the bike. She kick butt in that, doing a lot of ski touring through the winter. So just kind of reigniting her passions. And so I think she was saying she just hadn't spent that much time on her feet. But as you said, she's destroyed Sweden last year. It was insane watching her perform.
Were there any surprises for you in the Trail Ultra? What sticks out the most?
What sticks out the most from the trail? I think all the same thing. All the athletes that ran the farthest they ever ran, which was like half of everyone there, on top of doing those other 2 days. And of those folks, Lauren Weeks was a huge surprise in terms of finish. And Lindsay talks about this in the show. She came in as like the jack of all trades. She's really good. Similar like Herman Demick. Yeah, I'd say Lauren was the biggest surprise to me for the finishers.
At the Body Armor Lounge, at the end of the day, you went over the scores with the athletes. On the right side of the board were team scores: green, blue, black, red. What was the concept with team scoring? Whatever happened with that?
Yeah, so we don't talk about it much in the show, purely because there's just not enough time. There's this, I guess, the same throw the baby out with the bathwater or something. I think someone told me that originates from the film industry, because you literally have a million things you talk about and you got to pick 5. And so we just thought, instead of trying to fit so much stuff in a condensed time, the producers were like, let's just focus on the individuals. But there was a team component. It really didn't like manifest itself too much in the actual competition. It wasn't like there were team specific events, but we kept the points accumulated as a team too. So we randomly drew the teams to 4 on the first night, and based on the random drawings, you collected points for your team. So the green team, which I think had Hunter and Aaron on it, clearly were doing well because they had Hunter and Aaron who were in the first, second place. And then there's money on the line for that too. We just didn't talk about it much, and we didn't have any actual competitions that were team based.
I think my favorite shot of the entire show so far is everyone gathered around a phone watching the new episode of American Ninja Warrior that Grant was on. We've talked about it before, but tell me about the camaraderie of the athletes.
Really important part of it. The fact that we had athletes sleeping in the same room on cots, I think, added to the dynamic and saw it manifest itself in the athletes coaching each other. What you don't see is the hours and hours and hours that happen behind the scene there. And they're talking about strategy, talking about fuel, talking about how they do things, what they should wear. So despite the fact that they're out there fighting each other, fighting for points, fighting for money, they're still helping each other out. And then they built this community. So they want to watch Grant crush an American Ninja Warrior. They're all athletes. So they probably want to see, what is this thing really about, and get that real-time feedback from him. And there's for that same situation, there's dozens others just like that of what I heard about. And we did I think I mentioned this last time, we did like a hits and misses, not hits and misses, but highs and lows, whatever, at the end of the 4 days with no cameras for the athletes. And a lot of the athletes were talking about that, like the fact that they, outside of the actual competition, they were able to sit one-on-one and like get into deep personal conversations about life, about controversial topics. Right. So that was some of the best stuff that happened for a lot of the athletes that they're going to take away. Next
week on Spartan Games, King of the Mountain, Deca Heavy, and a new version of Spartan Cross. What can we expect next week?
You can expect Deca Heavy. You saw the clip. There's heavy lifting, there's deadlifting. And so what you don't see is the hour-long debate that happened after I said those three. This is what we're doing. And then we walked through what Deca Heavy was, and the jaws were like, right? And you have to, I hope I'm not throwing a spoiler, but the women had to deadlift like 165 pounds 10 times. The men 225 10 times. For someone like Kurt, Hunter, Herman, like that's nothing. That's 10 reps. It's not nothing. Like they obviously got to like engage the core and watch their form, but they're not stressing about it. But for some of the other athletes that never deadlift, they're like, like how can I even pick this up? So same thing. You saw the athlete, just like you said in the beginning, it's really cool to see the athletes good at it, and they're like touch and go. And then you see the athletes that have never deadlifted, and they're walking up before, they're like, how do I do this? What's the correct form? And that was really cool. So you can expect some really cool performances. And from that, you can skip. We allow people to skip in the Deca Heavy, and you're awarded a time penalty. So essentially creates like divisions, right? If you skip one obstacle, you get dropped. It was such a large time penalty that there's no chance that anyone who did all of them would lose to you. So basically, it created tiers of the final points for the Deca. The king of the vertical K was just up Joe stairs with a weight vest. Fast. They did it real fast. And then, and that was after all that other stuff. I can't imagine doing that. And then it rounded out with the Spartan Cross. But it was a modified version, a little shorter. So we were like, we became, the first day happened. And how do we make this a little more exciting? Mixed up a bit. So we did that for the last day.
Also next week, someone takes a fall off the pull-up bars. Atkins swears. And why is Lindsay crying like that?
Lindsay's crying. So Atkins, so that was Herman doing some muscle ups. One of the things in Deca Heavy was to do pull-ups. And everyone was doing muscle ups, not muscle ups, sorry, kipping pull-ups, and it was wet. So it was like, boom. Everyone was like, oh, I wonder if he got a rep on that. And then Ryan, you'll see it. There's a reason why Ryan gets angry. And then Lindsay crying.
It broke my heart. I rewound it and I watched it like 4 times. She's crying, and Atkins is, it's on the next episode, and Atkins is kind of holding her, comforting her.
Man, I got to rewatch that. I missed that.
I saw a nice motorcycle near the clock at the Trail Ultra. Tell me about some of the partners you're working with. during the
So
Spartan
you do this every
Games?
time, and I always feel bad because I'm not prepared. Harley Davidson, definitely key core and runner partner. They're huge. We wanted to talk about them. We had for the Xterra wetsuits, Honey Stinger, Athletic Brewing, True Form runners, which we had at the DECA. You'll see at DECA. I think were they on the DECA bit, or they'll be a DECA heavy True Form.
Was there a watch also you were working with? Polar?
Oh, Polar. Good call. Polar popped up on the screen left and right. Polar was awesome. They sent us some watches so we could do some biometric data and also to be able to track and confirm some of the results, which we did at one point. And man, I'm doing a terrible job remembering these sponsors. That's all I got for you. I think you probably know more than I do about these.
Mike, any last thoughts on day 3 of the Spartan Games?
Just it's awesome. Being there on site, it was definitely good to get through day 3. We're all pumped for day 4. Athletes are tired. The team was tired. The team was killing it. One thing I want to give a shout out back on the bike section. We had my team leaf blew the entire 10-mile course to make it safer. And so like anyone who's a mountain biker in the fall knows how much leaves suck to ride on in Vermont. And so Ian Toof went out there and literally walked the entire course and leaf blew the I don't know whatever the past tense is, but the entire 10-mile course to make it fast and fun. So thanks to the team.
You can watch the first 3 episodes of the Spartan Games on Spartan's YouTube channel. The 4th and final episode airs on Wednesday, December 23rd. Mike Morris, thanks much.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Mike Morris. Enjoyed talking with Mike these past episodes. If you have a question about the Spartan Games, text them to me, 619-485-2726. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That would be a nice present. I will talk with you soon. Go spend time with someone you love.